What is going on, guys, and welcome back to the Self-Made Podcast, a podcast where we talk all about building a stronger mindset, building a better physique, and overall building a better life for yourself. So, first things first, I want to say I'm really enjoying doing this. I was only recording a YouTube video throughout the week, and I kind of mentioned that I was doing a podcast later on in the week, and the fact that I am really enjoying this. I think not only because I'm obviously passionate about the things that I'm talking about here, but because it actually gets me going talking about these things, and really gets me thinking about how can I improve still, how can I push forward. So I really do like doing this, and I really hope this helps a lot of you continue pushing forward on your own journeys as well. Now, this week's episode is going to be called Untapped Potential, and this is something that I speak to people quite a lot about, because it's something that I've realised with my own journey after a while, and I think it's something very important to point out to a lot of people. And the reason is, most men have no idea how they're supposed to actually feel in their adult life, simply because you take it for granted that just being tired in your 20s, maybe 30s, feeling sore, getting out of bed, just feeling unmotivated is supposed to be normal. That's just life, that's just being an adult. But that is just not true, and the reality is vast majority of men are operating at or living at 20% or 30% maybe of their capacity. And this current normal is far from your best. People slowly adapt to feeling like this, I believe anyway, from being a teenager and having some form of exercise and being forced to eat your vegetables, or better quality meals because could be your parents making them, and the options are just that little bit better. But as the time goes on, you're transitioning from being that little bit more independent, and you might start making poor choices. You might start staying up later in the night, might start buying more food from the likes of takeaways from the deli, even if that's what you do in work, and you don't notice it because it happens gradually over time. But your energy levels are dropping, your strength levels are dropping, you might not be prioritizing training at the moment or over the last few years, and you don't notice yourself slowly dropping off in terms of what you are capable of doing or how you should actually feel. I want to bring this back to my kind of personal experience and where I kind of come from with this idea, was because, as you know, or if you don't, I've been personal training since I was 18 years old. That was my very first thing that I wanted to do, and I stuck to it since leaving school. And I, like everyone else, around 18 or 17, 18, started going out, started having that little bit more independence, drinking, all of those things that eventually become negatives. And as much as, yes, I was in the gym, I would say 6 days of the week, sometimes 7 days of the week, and I would train consistently, and you could say I lived a quite a healthy lifestyle. I still didn't realize how I was far from living or performing at my full potential. And what happened to make me realize that was actually lockdown. So in lockdown, I would have been around 20, let me go back here. I am 27 now. Lockdown was 6 years ago, so I would have been 21, around 21, 22. And around that time, I was in the midst of actually being kicked out of my mom's house. So again, there was a lot going on there, a lot of going out, a lot of, you could say, drowning my sorrows. The biggest thing that happened to me is, again, lockdown hitting eventually, and that's where I actually signed up with a coach for the very first time. So up until that time, I've done my own training, done my own diet and everything like that, and that was the very first time I actually took advice from someone, which was huge for me. It was actually in January when I started with a coach, and then obviously in March we hit full lockdown, and between January and March I've kept everything on point. But obviously when lockdown hit, there was just no more even excuses for not being on point. So obviously the restaurants were closed, there's no going out, there's no nightclubs, and I gave the coach that I've had at the time 110%. So I was absolutely blessed to actually live around the corner from the gym that I worked in. I could literally see from my bedroom, I could see the building of the gym where I worked in, and I was very close to the owners at the time, and I was able to go in and, if I cleaned up a little bit every now and again, make sure everything was on point, I was able to go in and train. So obviously I was blessed in that sense, and I'll always be very, very grateful for that, because I would say it honestly saved me. But nevertheless, I gave my training absolutely everything, I gave my nutrition absolutely everything, and obviously there was no distractions. So I wasn't staying up late, I wasn't going out drinking, and this was the very first time since being a young teenager that I went 3 months without drinking any alcohol, without essentially doing anything negative to my progress. I just locked in, as people like to say, and really followed the plan to a T for 3 months. I've had one night out in between, or one time where we had a house party in between, and I went for another 3 months without missing a beat now. And it was where it opened up my eyes to what I was actually capable of in terms of my strength levels in the gym, in terms of how good of a shape I was able to get in terms of how much mentally sharper I was, how I felt getting up out of bed in the morning, how much I was capable of actually doing throughout the day. As much as you might think there was not much to do in lockdown, I still used the majority of that time to set me up towards becoming an online coach down the line and setting up all the systems. That was a massive part for me, realizing what I'm actually capable of when I put my mind to it, when I really set my eyes on something and do not have any of these distractions and not let something take away from what I'm doing. And again, as I said, my energy levels went through the roof. My focus was just on another level. My confidence was higher than ever because I was in the best shape of my life, and I was doing everything that I've actually set out for myself to do. And again, my just productivity all around, I was on the ball with absolutely everything, sticking to the same meals at the same time, making sure that I'm still keeping in touch with clients. Everything that I could have done, I was doing. And this is where, removing all the noise essentially from, maybe going out drinking, it allowed me to just move at a completely different pace. And I do really think that most men in this day and age never actually experience that. And a lot of men will never actually take the chance to do it, to actually try experiencing that for themselves, because again, they're caught up in having a poor routine, they're caught up in eating food for convenience, whether that's getting your lunch from the deli or getting home and ordering a takeaway a couple of times a week, and overall going out most weekends and then ending up just not being in the great shape for the next 2 to 3 days. Let's be honest with ourselves, no matter how much you drink, it will have an effect on you, as much as you might think different. And if you don't think, this is another thing, if you don't think those things have an effect on you, that's how far gone you are. Because again, you are living at 20% capacity, because again, doing those negatives, you don't even see it affecting you in a negative way. And that just goes to show where you are at the moment. I think there is a lot of things that you could do to, improve your situation. I think starting with your routine, which is going to be essentially your foundation for absolutely everything. Your routine is the very first thing that I look at with my clients coming on board, and the thing that I tell them to break down, because it is going to have an effect on absolutely everything. Training consistently on the same days at the same time if possible, eating at the same time every single day. It will help your body manage your hunger levels throughout the day. So your body will get used to getting hungry at the same time every time, to make sure that you do not have cravings throughout the day, and your body essentially knows what to expect and when to expect it. Going out for the likes of walks, most importantly eating real food. I think this is something that is crazy in this day and age, that men will eat a plate of rice, chicken, vegetables, and all of a sudden claim that they're on a diet. Like, that is absolutely nuts to me. Or, call it potatoes, bit of beef, whatever it may be. Like, just because you're eating real food and it feels like you're on a diet, like that just again goes to show the current position that you are in. If you're constantly craving things that are not a positive, because at the end of the day we all know that deep fat fried stuff is not great for you. That the Chinese, the takeaways, the chicken fillet rolls, they're not a great quality of food. So again, it's having that change there that's going to have a massive effect. And obviously improving your sleep, going to bed at the same time every single night, waking up at the same time. It's such a simple thing, and it makes a massive difference for your body, how well you are actually able to get up out of bed, rather than feeling like you have to drag your feet. These things have a massive effect, and if I was you, I would sit down and plan this out for yourself and know everything that's going on in your week. From the moment you wake up till the moment you go back to bed, you should know, okay, I wake up at, let's say, 6, I get to work at 8, I have my first meal at 10, second one at 2, I finish work at 5, whatever it may be, and break everything down so you know exactly what's happening. And that way you can just tick things off the list as you go along. It's going to have a massive positive effect on your ability to just stick to an actual plan. And I think another thing to really mention is taking a break from alcohol and seeing how that actually affects your body, and I guarantee you it's going to have massive effect. What I would say is try going for 30 to 90 days, 1 to 3 months without alcohol, and just know, right, week to week, how is your sleep, how is your mood, how much body fat are you carrying, how is your ability to recover. So whether it is that you are recovering from work, because some of you might work a physical job, or it is your training, and note those things and see how much alcohol actually affects you. And I guarantee you, as much as you might think it's not massive, I'm telling you it is. All of those things will have a massive effect on your testosterone levels. So if you drink alcohol, it's going to have a negative effect on your testosterone. But then you look at the likes of quality of food, the quality of your sleep. The next thing that I would pay a lot of attention to is your digestion and how it actually responds. So I think I've mentioned it already, but feeling extreme hunger is not normal, especially if you are not really lean. Feeling sluggish all the time is not normal. Feeling cravings, so for the likes of sugary stuff like chocolates or fatty stuff like takeaways, it is not normal. They are signals. They literally are signals. Like, that's your brain telling you that you are lacking something. inside that, when you are craving those things, there is something that's actually off. So I really would look at your digestion as a marker for how you feel. And even things like being bloated, that's another big sign. Not feeling like you're going into food coma after having a meal. All of those things are super, super important. A positive sign in terms of digestion is having stable energy and being able to obviously perform in the likes of training. But I think stable energy throughout the day, not having massive ups and downs, that's going to be absolutely massive for you to keep an eye on. And obviously then we look at overall strength and how capable you are when it comes to your strength. How do you perform in the gym? How strong are you? How fast do you move? All of those things are going to be very easily tracked. All you have to do is look at the numbers that you are lifting in the gym over the next couple of weeks and see how are they being affected. And overall, I would say mental sharpness as well, and your overall ability to manage stress. I think that is something that so many people struggle with these days. Is, for one, yes, mental sharpness in terms of what you're doing in work, how much you can essentially get done, but being able to manage stress. I think we're in a time where men in general are rather weak. Let's be honest with ourselves, like physically and mentally. There's just no doubt about it. And me doing this podcast, is the goal of this is try and actually help you build a stronger mindset. But a lot of this actually comes down to being able to manage stress, like take on stress and find a solution rather than just put your hands up and say, oh no, I can't deal with this, I can't do this. You know what I mean? Whether it is stress from the likes of training, or it's stress in work, it's stress at home, could be a relationship. Like, how you're able to manage those things is extremely, extremely important, rather than panicking and saying, oh fuck, I can't do this, I can't deal with this anymore. Running into essentially panic mode where you're just going, no, I can't keep going with this. The very important thing in all of this is, what does working at 100%, what does that actually mean? Because I could be talking about those things and you might not necessarily care when you think about what's better digestion. Like, I don't care about having a better digestion, but yeah, what you have to really think about is, how does having all of those things affect my life? Like, what does me working to my full potential mean? Like, what does that actually give me in terms of real life? Like, does that mean you make more money in work, you have a better physique, so you feel more confident with your top off, or in general you feel more confident when you walk into a room? Because again, you're showing up for yourself across the board. You're coming in and doing everything you've set out for yourself to do. What I want you to do is just imagine how your life would look like if you done everything that you could be doing, and how much different would your life actually feel day to day if you performed at your 100% all of the time. Going over some practical things that you should be doing in order to make that happen is, number one, training 3 times a week. I would say 3 to 5 times is perfect. You do not need to do any more. You do not need to do a 75 hard challenge. Just weight train 3 times a week. Do 10 minutes of cardio after, to a point where your heart is racing, you're pushing yourself, and that's going to have a massive change. Get 8 to 10,000 steps a day. It's going to allow you to burn through a lot more energy, hence help you lose some body fat at the same time. And do it outdoors. Don't just do it in a gym before your session. Like, get outdoors, get a bit of fresh air. I prefer doing my chunk of steps first thing in the morning. When I wake up 6 in the morning, the first thing I do is get dressed and get out the door and just do a little lap around the estate. As I said, cut out alcohol for minimum 30 days. You will not believe how much of an effect that has. And I get that from so many lads that I work with that would drink consistently. And I asked them, I said, listen, we don't have to, cut out alcohol for the rest of your life. I don't have a problem with drinking nowadays. I can have a drink, I can control it, I know I won't go overboard. But try cutting it out for the next 30 days and see how you feel. And so many lads come back to me saying, Ben, I cannot believe this, how good I actually feel. And it's not some magic of, using my plan. It's just that you are starting to feel how you should be feeling. The next thing is eating real food. Like 90% of your diet should be real food. Whether you make it yourself or not, that's a different story. You could order prepped meals and whatever, but if you make your own food, cook it in batches so it's easier, stick to that 90% of it. Have a bit of chocolate with your cup of tea maybe, if that's what you're into in the evening, but outside of that, 90% of your food should be not processed, real food. And lastly, sleep 7 to 8 hours a night. It's going to have unbelievable life-changing effect on your energy levels throughout the day and how your body is actually able to manage stress every single day, whether that's training, whether that's life stress. So again, set yourself this challenge for the next 30 days and see how you're going to feel, because right now it's not that you're lazy, you're broken, that there's something wrong with you. If you can relate to those things that I said about not feeling great in the morning when you wake up, struggling to get out of bed, struggling with your digestion, being physically unfit, like, it's not that you're broken, you're just stuck in a cycle of your life not letting you feel better, because again, you're not giving yourself any reason to. I really do hope this pushes some people to think about where they are and potentially where they could be if they really started looking at themselves and living their life to full potential. As always, thank you very much for listening. If you've gotten this far, I do appreciate it. It means the world to me that you took your time to actually listen to this. And as always, if anyone has any questions off the back of any of the episodes, drop me a message and I'll be more than happy to help.